The headlines of this hour on VTV News. The new school year to continue placing students at the Center for Education Development. Later on, Vietnam's coastal areas braced for Typhoon Yagi. In our world news, ASEAN to enhance cooperation for regional peace and security.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Good morning. It is currently 8 a.m. local time and you're tuning in to 30 minutes of VTV News. I'm Lidin Lei with the latest updates. And for this hour's top news, teaching is a noble profession. That was the message from State President Tô Lâm to educators as schools across the country resumed after the holidays. The party general secretary and state president wrote an open letter to all those in education, urging the sector to focus on human development and human happiness, maximizing the human factor and setting people as the center, subjects, resources, and goals of development, thus creating a foundation for achieving the goal of a prosperous, powerful, democratic, fair, and civilized country. He requested ministries, local party committees, and authorities to pay even more attention to education by making timely, practical, and correct decisions so that teachers and students can work and study in a healthy environment with all the necessary conditions to enhance their creative abilities and successfully carry out the country's educational reform. He also wished that all teachers, educational administrators, education sector employees, and students good health, happiness, success, and even greater achievements in the new academic year. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính also attended the opening ceremony of the 2024 to 2025 academic year at Nguyễn Đình Chiểu Junior High School for students with vision impairment in Hanoi on September the 5th. More on his visit in the following.
On behalf of the party and state leaders, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh extended his best wishes to all teachers and students nationwide for a successful new school year, expressing hope that each year will build upon the last. He also commended Nguyen Dinh Chio School for its inclusive education model for visually impaired students, equipping them with essential skills and fostering their confidence to actively integrate into the broader community. Highlighting important achievements that the education training sector has gained so far, the Prime Minister emphasized that the sector should continue to build on those results in the 2024 to 2025 academic year, following the motto of students as the center and subject, teachers as motivation, schools as support, families as the fulcrum, and society as the foundation of education training activities.
We believe the education sector will continue to uphold its traditions, working together to overcome challenges and achieve greater success in the 2024 to 2025 school year. Guided by the principle that people are our most valuable resource, we prioritize their well-being and development, ensuring that progress, social justice, and security are not compromised for economic growth, leaving no one behind.
The Prime Minister called on teachers to embrace their noble mission and inspire their students. He urged ministries and localities to create an inclusive, fair, and supportive learning environment, especially for students with disabilities and those facing challenges. To all students, the Prime Minister encouraged perseverance and good health. This will help citizens in striving to become responsible, thriving, and contribute to a prosperous Vietnam, fulfilling President Ho Chi Minh's vision.
The 2024 to 2025 school year has begun in Vietnam with 25 million students and teachers continuing to innovate teaching and learning methods, improve facilities, and enhance education quality from preschool to university. However, regardless of the goals achieved, education must always prioritize students, focusing on human development and well-being.
Amid the sound of welcoming drums, first graders were greeted by their teachers and older classmates. This tradition reflects the care given to each child's school journey from their very first days.
I really enjoy going to school because it allows me to learn many new things.
With rapidly increasing student numbers, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City prioritize building new schools and securing learning spaces as key educational concerns. Today, Binh Tri Donk Bi Ward in Ho Chi Minh City held its opening ceremony at a newly built school.
This new school is spacious, with beautifully designed classrooms.
In the Central Highlands, students from ethnic groups celebrate the opening ceremony in their traditional costumes. Beyond academic excellence, the school emphasizes preserving the cultural identity and rich traditions of Vietnam's ethnic groups.
I will strive to put in more effort and determination in studies to contribute to a generation that is confident and enthusiastic.
Placing students at the center, regardless of their background, ensures that all receive equal attention. In the border district of Nam Po, Dien Bien Province, many schools marked the new school year with the Piggy Bank Festival. This event is part of the 2000 Donk a Day for Education initiative, which raises over 1 billion Donk annually. The funds are used to build school facilities and support teachers and students facing challenges in the district. Meanwhile, on the Truong Sa archipelago, schools are also alive with the sound of school drums. Regardless of their location, children are assured their right to education and comprehensive development.
In the new school year, I will work hard to earn excellent grades.
The school drum has echoed across the country, signaling the start of the new year. From mountains and plains to urban centers and islands, over 23 million students are eagerly looking forward to the new experiences and opportunities that lie ahead.
Now moving on to other news, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính on September the 5th requested ministries, agencies and localities to swiftly implement measures to respond to Super Typhoon Yagi, which is approaching northern Vietnam. The Prime Minister stressed the importance of ensuring the safety of lives, especially children and vulnerable groups, and minimizing damage to property. In an urgent dispatch, he urged affected localities to postpone unnecessary meetings and focus all resources on storm response. Key priorities include safeguarding residents in areas at risk of severe flooding, high waves, storm surges, heavy rain, and landslides. The Prime Minister emphasized that people must not remain in high-risk areas and should be relocated if necessary to avoid danger. He also warned that leaders of localities, organizations, and agencies who neglect storm and flood response duties would face accountability. Meanwhile, residents of northern and north-central Vietnam have been advised to stay indoors starting the morning of September the 7th, as Super Typhoon Yagi is expected to make landfall. Phạm Đức Luận, Director of the Department of Dike Management and Natural Disaster Prevention, issued the warning during an urgent meeting in Hanoi on September the 5th. He emphasized that the typhoon's extensive circulation radius will bring heavy rain and strong winds, posing significant dangers, especially in areas where corrugated metal roofs and large advertising boards are common. Trees are also prone to falling as well. He urged the evacuation of people in low-lying coastal areas and those living in semi-permanent homes at risk of collapse, especially near river mouths and coastal zones. Schools closure were recommended in affected areas. With Yagi expected to bring 200 to 500 millimeters of rain, urban areas are at high risk of severe flooding. Authorities have been instructed to prepare accordingly. Yagi strengthened into a super typhoon level on September the 5th afternoon, with winds gusting 201 kilometers per hour near its center, according to the National Center for Hydrometeorological Forecasting. The super typhoon is forecast to move into the Gulf of Tonkin on September the 6th on the morning and slime into the mainland in the northeastern and north-central regions in the early morning of September the 7th. Due to its force, Yagi will certainly cause strong winds, storm surges, and high waves at sea and along the coast, as well as strong winds and widespread heavy rain on land. Yagi, the third to hit Vietnam this year's stormy season, is considered the most powerful storm to pound Vietnam in 10 years. It is anticipated to heavily impact coastal provinces from Quảng Ninh to Thanh Hóa provinces. In recent times, fishing vessels from coastal provinces in central Vietnam have diligently followed recommendations to combat IUU, or illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. However, instances of disconnected monitoring devices still occur. To meet the European Commission's or EC requirements, local authorities are now focusing their resources on implementing comprehensive solutions to thoroughly address IUU fishing activities.
The Fisheries Control Office of Da Nang's Fisheries Department regularly monitors fishing vessel activities as seabed tracking systems. If a vessel shows signs of fishing in unauthorized waters or loses its tracking connection, the office immediately notifies the vessel's owner. Intentional disconnections lasting over 6 hours incur strict penalties. However, fishermen frequently attribute connection losses to issues with service providers.
We face many challenges when returning to port after losing connection. We hope the service provider will address these connection issues, allowing fishermen to continue their work and set sail with ease. The Fishery Department is urged to establish guidelines for handling satellite connection losses by service providers.
In 11 central provinces from Thanh Hóa to Khánh Hòa, around 11,990 fishing vessels, each 15 meters or longer, have been equipped with tracking devices, representing over 98% of the fleet. For the remaining 200 vessels without tracking devices, local authorities have established monitoring lists and instructed border posts to prevent their departure or docking.
The management board promptly relays information about incoming vessels and their catch quantities to the Fishery Control Office before they dock. This enables the office to coordinate efforts and verify potential violations.
The European Commission's inspection team is expected to return to Vietnam for the 5th time in this September. In preparation, all relevant authorities are focusing their resources on resolving the remaining issues in fisheries management.
Coming up next on VTV News. Vietnam seeks to lure global chip companies through new incentives. And later on, efforts made to remove temporary houses for ethnic people. Moving on to other updates, Vietnam is preparing a package of incentives for chip companies, including tax breaks, fast-tracked export processes, and 10 years of rent-free land, according to Nikkei Asia. The proposed Digital Technology Industry, or DTI law, also offers 150% research expense write-offs, grants, and expedited visas, aiming to attract global players like NVIDIA and Besi. These measures come as Vietnam looks into benefit from the U.S.-China tech war, which is pushing semiconductor firms to diversify their supply chains. The government is introducing new rules to seize the opportunity, but Nikkei notes that these incentives must be aligned with the global treaty on minimum taxes. Vietnam is also investing in energy, infrastructure, and workforce training to position itself as a key player in the semiconductor industry, while navigating compliance with the OECD-backed 15% global tax floor adopted by over 140 countries. The Vietnam Association of Seafood Exporters and Producer VASEP and the shrimp industry have rejected a recent report by Sustainability Incubator, claiming its allegations of labor abuse are baseless and damaging to the industry reputation. VASAP noted that its members, responsible for 80 to 84% of Vietnam's seafood exports, follow strict national and international standards for food safety, social responsibility, and environmental protection. Shrimp products, which generate 40 to 45% of the sector's total export value, contribute around $3.5 to $4 billion annually and are exported to 100 markets, including the US, Europe, Japan, China, and South Korea. VASAP emphasized that Vietnam has made significant strides in improving labor standards, enforcing regulations, and promoting corporate social responsibility across industries, including shrimp. The disputed report, based on field research conducted from July 2023 to May 2024, was criticized for misrepresenting the industry's progress. Vietnam has nearly 100 cold storage facilities with a capacity of about 1.3 million tons, but this is still insufficient compared to demand. Investment in these facilities is limited, with some regions having too many projects and others lacking more than adequate storage for export goods.
Every month, this cooperative buys and exports thousands of tons of fresh durian. In the future, they plan to increase the production of frozen products. However, securing land for cold storage remains a challenge.
Businesses face challenges as they must purchase and build land for warehouses, yards, and factories themselves due to the lack of specific regulations for the durian industry. We also prefer having designated areas for production to ensure it meets standards.
In the southern region, there are approximately 65 cold storage facilities with a combined capacity of under 1 million tons, primarily located in Long An, Binh Duong, and Ho Chi Minh City. In contrast, the Mekong Delta, a key agricultural hub, lacks such facilities.
When investing in cold storage, we select key locations near main roads, with convenient transportation and close to raw material sources. We only consider investment when there is substantial demand.
Investors assess the production capacity of raw material areas before planning factory construction, prioritizing convenient transportation and quality. However, there is currently a lack of effective planning for factories and cold storage in raw material regions.
Vietnam's fruit and vegetable industry produces over 15 million tons annually, but cold storage facilities have a combined capacity of less than 2 million tons, falling short of demand. To address this, systematic planning is needed for land costs, electricity, water, and credit to attract substantial investment in the sector.
The project for 1 million hectares of high-quality, low-emission rice linked to green growth in the Mekong Delta has been implemented through 7 pilot models in Cần Thơ, Đồng Tháp, Kiên Giang, Trà Vinh, and Sóc Trăng. Farmers, businesses, and local authorities have gained a better understanding of the implementation methods, paving the way for expansion in the near future.
Hưng Lợi Cooperative is currently harvesting its first rice crop using the new cultivation method. Initial concerns have been alleviated as the approach effectiveness has successfully won over the farmers.
By reducing the amount of seeds, farmers can also decrease the use of fertilizer and pesticides. Lowering input costs have increased the additional profit for farmers.
Evaluations show that the seeding rate has been reduced to just 60 kilograms per hectare, with pesticide sparing cut by 75% and nitrogen fertilizer use decreased by approximately 40%. Yields now range from 7 to 7.5 tons per hectare, about 1 ton higher than the control model. Notably, this new approach also reduced carbon dioxide emissions by 7 to 12 tons per hectare.
The 50-hectare pilot model in Long Phu district has achieved initial success in the first crop. The profits for the farmers have already shown very positive results.
By applying the scientific method of burying fertilizer, instead of using 10 bags per hectare as before, it has now been reduced by 30%.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development emphasized two main objectives for the 12 provinces, which are reducing production costs and increasing farmers' profits. The pilot results were promising. Compared to the control group, total rice production costs decreased by 14 to 20%, while profits increased by 12 to 20%.
Before implementing the pilot models, agricultural officers had to encourage households to participate. However, with these projects, farmers are now volunteering to join. This reflects a shift in mindset and cultivation practices.
From now until 2025, the agricultural sector plans to expand this model to approximately 200,000 hectares. The project is expected to transform rice farming in Mekong Delta.
Houzang is a province with many difficulties and a high number of poor households. Since the beginning of the year, Houzang has continued to support the elimination of temporary houses for disadvantaged families, with more than 1,000 houses. This once again affirms the social security policy of no one left behind by the party and state.
For the past few months, this man has been focusing on building his small house. With the $2,000 he received in support, he used his own labor to build this spacious home.
Thanks to the support, I was able to build a house. Each of my brothers gave me $200 to $400.
In addition to the ethnic policy, more than 30 poor households in this commune have also received support to build sturdy houses. Cern has just completed his house with $2,400. The house is not very spacious but solid.
My salary is not enough to build a house. Thanks to the support I received, I now have my own house.
Local governments identify the right people who need housing support. This number increases every year because many houses are degraded and damaged. Resources for eliminating temporary and dilapidated houses are being focused on districts with many difficulties. In Longmi District, two particularly difficult communes are being given priority for investment.
Local authorities are focusing on helping poor households, including financial support or gifts. We need to ensure decent housing for people to shelter from the rain and sun.
Through many different mobilization methods, Houzang has received active support from benefactors. The publicity and transparency helped the movement spread and created a good societal outcome.
Coming up next in our world news, ASEAN to enhance cooperation for regional peace and security. And China to give Africa $15 billion over the next 3 years. Now moving on to our world news, the 21st ASEAN Chiefs of Defense Forces Conference took place on Thursday in Vientiane, Laos. At the conference, the ASEAN Chiefs of Defense Forces assessed the results of cooperation between ASEAN militaries and proposed orientations to promote substantive and effective cooperation in the future. Speaking at the conference, Senior Lieutenant General Nguyen Tân Cương, Chief of the General Staff of the Vietnam People's Army, affirmed that only through strengthening political trust, promoting solidarity and substantive cooperation, can we effectively and thoroughly resolve the transnational challenges that ASEAN countries are facing, saying that ASEAN needs to maintain its central role and strengthen intra-bloc solidarity to affirm its strategic position in the region. China pledges $50 billion in investment for Africa over the next 3 years. The statement was made by Chinese President Xi Jinping at the China-Africa Cooperation Forum Summit held on the morning at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. Speaking at the conference, President Xi Jinping proposed upgrading China-Africa relations to a China-Africa community of shared future under all conditions in the new era. Also at the conference, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that China-Africa cooperation not only contributes to addressing development disparities, but also brings many opportunities for Africa to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi is visiting Singapore at the invitation of Prime Minister of Singapore Lawrence Wong. During the visit, India and Singapore signed a memorandum of understanding on the India-Singapore Semiconductor Ecosystem Partnership. The dialogue mechanisms established under the MOU will facilitate investment in India by Singaporean companies. This will also enable India to benefit from Singapore's semiconductor ecosystem and create its own. Singapore plays a key role in the global semiconductor supply chain, accounting for 10% of the total chips produced globally and about 20% of the global semiconductor manufacturing equipment output. Singapore has over 20 years of experience in this field. The race for the 2024 U.S. presidential election has entered the final stages. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris' campaign team agreed to the rules for next week's debate with Republican candidate Donald Trump, including muting microphones before it's their turn to speak. Candidates are all trying to win support in all 50 states, especially the 7 battleground states, also known as the swing states. These are highly competitive states due to the change in voting for Democrats or Republicans throughout the history of presidential elections.
North Carolina is one of 7 battleground states that will play a key role in this year's U.S. presidential election. The Democratic Party has not won the state since the 2008 election. However, this year, the Democratic Party is seeing an opportunity to turn things around with young voters.
So the reason I'm an activist is because I think that the climate crisis is the biggest crisis that we're currently facing, and that the best thing to do at this particular moment is to help elect Democrats.
In another swing state, Wisconsin, one of only 2 states to have voted for the winning candidate in the last 2 presidential elections, polls show the economy is one of the top issues voters in the state care about.
I feel like they're really concerned about the economy as their number one, and I think we all should be as well. Economy, jobs, gas prices, it's all very important.
The economy, that's the number one issue. The economy, getting things back on track, getting inflation under control.
According to the Pew Research Center, environmental protection is one of the issues that appeals strongly to young people in many states in the U.S., not just in North Carolina. Even among Republicans, surveys show that nearly 80% of young Republicans believe that humans are responsible for the current climate change.
Up next, let's have a look at the weather forecast. And that is all that we have for this hour on VTV News. To rewatch our program, you can visit our website or YouTube channel or download the mobile app VTV Go for more. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.